Hey friends, and welcome back to my page. Today we're going to cover how to stop seeking approval from other people and start living your life for you and for nobody else. It is a struggle that we all understand. It's this feeling of a constant need for external validation instead of looking within for the answers. This brings anxiety, disapproval of yourself, and honestly, you just living a life that isn't authentic to your true self. But here's the thing, you can overcome it, and I have helped so many of my clients do this, and I've even overcome this myself as well. Since I've been there, I want to share these practical steps on how to overcome seeking other people's approval. That way you can reclaim your authenticity and your confidence back in yourself. All right, the first thing that we must understand when trying to figure out why we are suffering from this specific part of our personality is to understand what got us here. I'm going to explain why you're suffering from the need for external validation. Now, the first thing that I see that's most common with people is the social norms that our culture just currently lives by. Now, this can be anything from when you feel like you should start to have children, how nice of a house you should have by the age of 35, if you should have your parents move in with you after they get old. There's just so many pressures that people are putting externally on us that generally we're not even sitting and thinking about, we're just accepting as our own. When this happens, it often pushes us to please other people, do things for other people, including parents, friends, partners. And what this ends up doing ultimately is causing us not to live a life for ourselves, but a life for other people, which will never end in happiness. And if you notice that you are exhibiting people-pleasing tendencies, then this is a really big area for you to work on to start to live your fullest life. Now, we fall into this trap because we have this deep desire to be liked, to be accepted, and to be loved in a way that maybe we didn't receive when we were kids. So I would love for you all to write out a couple ways that social pressure and social norms have affected your way. So I want you to write out how some social pressures and social norms have affected the way that you live your life for other people and not for yourself. Now, the second reason why most people suffer from this is because it was conditioning since we were little kids. Now, as some of you guys might know, the first 3 years of our developmental age, we are learning all of the subconscious programming, up to 95% of it. And during that time, we're learning a lot of things. And generally, this is where we're starting to learn how to seek approval and get the love that we require. We do this because love equals security, love equals safety, and our childlike brain is only seeking those type of feelings. When we receive positive reinforcement, we have a further craving for this type of approval, which can be positive in certain ways, but if we start to crave this positive reinforcement to then validate ourselves on the inside, then we're technically looking for others to replace what we're not feeling within. And unfortunately, this early conditioning severely affects the way that we live our adult life. Maybe think of a time where you were seeking external validation as a kid and either you received it or you didn't receive it. And just think about how that type of validation affected the way that you live your life now as an adult. Now, the next big piece that affects seeking approval is the fear of rejection, just living a life of fear. Fear is paralyzing. It modifies our actions and the choices that we take in our day-to-day. And we do all this just to avoid the disapproval of others. This fear often stems from childhood and comes from this constant need for external validation. And unfortunately, it causes us to seek reassurance, even at the detriment to our own liking. Now, more than likely, if you seek external validation, you suffer from low self-esteem. These two are very closely tied together. And this is because seeking approval starts to compensate for what you feel like you're lacking. When we seek that external validation, we're looking to feel loved, we're looking to feel safe when we're not feeling that already within. And we're relying on other people to define our own worth that we're unsure of. And this is a really vicious cycle that just keeps happening and going and going and going, that ends up preventing you from ever really finding your own self-worth on the inside, always relying on other people externally. And this last one kind of ties into the first point, but it's about comparison culture. And this is something that has really gone rampant in these last few years with social media and the kind of constant evolution of us always looking at our phone and always consuming something. It's this constant need for having something that you don't have because you see it. Maybe it's a place you've always wanted to travel, a relationship that you've never had, riches that you never thought were possible. There's always this need for more. And this leads to inadequacy, which then has us grasping for external validation in whatever way that we can find it, which is why we see a culture right now just doing a lot of things that we haven't seen it do in the past. Essentially, we just fall into this approval trap that we're never going to be good enough. And once again, when you fall into that cycle of not feeling good enough, it doesn't matter how good you look, how rich you get, how many children you have in the perfect relationship, you're always going to find a way to disapprove of yourself and not feel happy. Now that we understand why it's happening, now I want to talk about why the approval trap is destroying your life. All right, so we talked about how you got here. Now we have to talk about what is actually happening now that you're here and what can we do about it. When I work with clients, these are some of the main things that I notice that people are lacking when they're constantly seeking external validation. The first is overall emotional well-being. In general, the person who comes to me that is seeking approval, that people pleases constantly, generally just is overall unhappy with their current life circumstances and the choices that they've continuously made. This seeking external validation really leads to intense stress, anxiety. The fear of rejection just keeps them from trying to accomplish anything new on their own, ultimately leading to high levels of self-doubt. All right, the second thing are suffering relationships. If you are in this trap, you might notice that relationships just go sour really quickly, whether it's an intimate relationship or a friendship. You aren't able to speak your truth, and you might notice that you hold on to resentment from other people and might not ever even tell them why you're upset. And this just creates a big issue in relationships. When you're constantly seeking that approval, you might come off as more clingy. You might even push people away so they don't see those inadequacies that you're trying to hide. And ultimately, this is going to hinder you from having genuine, loving relationships in your life. The third, self-expression is completely muted. I see people who fall into this trap where they can be midlife and still have never followed that dream or passion that's been on their heart since they were a teenager. When you constantly try to put yourself into the mold of somebody else's expectations, you're never going to follow through with all those things that you've always wanted to do within, resulting in stifled creativity, self-expression, and you truly never experiencing who you are. Number 4, career advancement. I cannot tell you how many times I've worked with clients who come to me and either want to move up in their company or completely quit what they're doing and switch jobs, because ultimately, I've seen people go to school for their parents, get a job for their parents or a partner, and never truly follow the path that was set up for them. And so usually you see people who seek this approval in jobs that they're unhappy, that they feel like they're trapped. This is going to hinder your own personal growth, your own ability to advance. More than likely, you're going to have stunted income as well because you don't enjoy anything that you're actually doing. You might notice that you avoid taking risks, you don't assert yourself in situations where you need to, and you're in constant fear of the disapproval from your colleagues and supervisors. And number 5, just mental health in general. I notice this is where anxiety and stress end up catapulting someone's life into depression or into other very serious mental health symptoms. When you get to a place of depression and low self-esteem, your confidence is stunted and you start to lose the ability to understand who you are as a person. And with that constant need for external validation, you start to feel hopeless. And this is where I generally see a distorted sense of self-image as well. All right, so here is going to be your step-by-step guide on how to get out of the approval trap and start moving forward with your life. Now, as always, the first thing is always going to be starting with some type of reflection and creating awareness within. Since you've already watched a video like this, you probably know where it stemmed from. You can identify pieces of your history that attach to this, and you can start to see how it's affecting your current life. When this is happening in your day-to-day, it's important to have the awareness and In those moments, instead of going to a place of people pleasing or whatever type of coping mechanism you've created, it's important to just stop the action, break the pattern, and just once you acknowledge, accept, and do not judge yourself when you get to this destination. Number 2, learning how to set boundaries is gold for people who normally seek approval from others. Now, learning how to say no when necessary is also going to be your biggest tool moving forward. Establishing new limits of self-respect and laying the foundation for a stronger version of yourself moving forward. When you're trying to understand the real authentic you, starting to learn about what you like so you can set boundaries around it is going to be that second most important step. So remember, recap, we're starting with the awareness and then moving into setting some boundaries. So getting to know where you're at and where you want to be. Number 3 is paired with self-compassion. Being kind to yourself, finding that compassion, not judging yourself in those moments, especially during self-doubt, is going to allow your body and your mind to stop feeling so overactive and anxious and stressed and start to feel more calm and relaxed in those challenging moments. It's important to learn how to accept those imperfections because they are a part of you, and unfortunately, if you're not going to find a way to accept them, nobody else will. Generally, we're constantly in the cycle of thinking that other people are thinking about us, that other people are looking at us or judging us. In reality, how often are you actually doing that versus judging your own self? So if you're spending more time judging yourself, don't you think that that other average person is doing the same thing? And in return, isn't it kind of selfish to think that everybody else is thinking about you? Now, number 4, it's about embracing vulnerability. You have created this cocoon of safety around you for so many years, from childhood into adulthood, and this cocoon is unfortunately stunting you. When you're not being vulnerable, you're not going to create genuine connections. You're not going to feel like your true authentic self. So more than likely, that's where that self-confidence is going to go out the door. And you're not going to accept the things that make you unique. And if you're not doing those things, you're really just falling back into the same trap that you were before. And this next one for number 5, you want to embrace mindfulness. It's all about staying in the present moment, my friends. And when you're in the present moment, you're not thinking about the past, you're not thinking about the future, you're not thinking about what you have to do in 10 seconds or what you did 10 seconds ago or what someone just said about you or what you just said about somebody. You're thinking about your current situation, what you're currently on. You are thinking possibly just about more positive things. When you're in that present moment, you're actually feeling. All right, so now I want to give you guys a couple tips on how to actually apply this. Now, my first and favorite one is to start to implement positive affirmations. Now, when I start working with a client, sometimes I have them grab sticky notes and I have them jot down everything that they can think of on how to start to think more positive about themselves. So maybe they don't feel beautiful. You are beautiful. They don't feel smart. I am smart. And you can post these around. I love writing things on my mirrors, in the bathroom, or mirrors I look in when I get ready. And it's important to start to say these things to yourself because we can learn through rehearsal, and repetitive rehearsal is a very important way to get those new thoughts programmed back into your subconscious mind. And pro tip number 2 is to surround yourself with more positive people. If you are surrounded by friends or family or a partner who is just unhappy all the time, it's going to be really challenging to not let their optimism or pessimism to affect how you're feeling in your day-to-day. Your environment significantly matters. There's so much research on this. So if you're going to pick 2 things to do, fill your day, fill your time and your mind with positive imagery, positive affirmations, positive sounds and language, and also change the people you're around. So starting to shift your environment is going to allow you to create a safer place so you can start to express yourself more vulnerably. All right, now that I gave you all these tools on how to better express yourself, there's a couple things I would love from you. If you can go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel for more videos, that would be amazing. If you have any other ideas or thoughts on what you would love to see from me, go ahead and drop it in the comments below. And if you would like help from me or anyone on my team go ahead and look in the About Me section, and you can go ahead and look at my website. You can apply for one-on-one coaching, and I even offer free discovery calls for anybody who wants to just talk and get to know a little bit about what I offer and how they could work with me. And you'll also even get a freebie on the website on some journal prompts that are going to help you with your day-to-day. All right, my friends, remember to be you, because no one else can be, and that is your truest gift.